Thank you for joining us. There are many new features in the March release of GRC for Orlando. We'd like to walk you through 3 very short demos of a few of the key features of the release. To begin, I would like to introduce you to my colleague to walk you through the virtual agent chatbot.
Hello, everyone. This is Scott Ferguson. I want to spend a couple of minutes talking to you about risk events and the way that we capture them from the ServiceNow portal in the first line of defense, so how they generate demand into your risk processes. So, a couple of things you'll see here as we look at the IRM portal is that there's a couple of ways that they can interact. So, we have the opportunity to raise a request through the service catalog, and a first line of defense could come here and they could report the risk event, and they could fill out this individual form. And by filling out this form, they could register that risk event through the service catalog in the traditional way. The other thing that they could do is from the home page is they could do this through the virtual agent by having this conversation, because maybe they don't know where it's at from a service catalog perspective and they just want to raise the request through the service portal. By selecting the virtual agent in the bottom right hand corner, it can initiate that conversation. So what we see here is the virtual agent telling them, hey, what's going on, how can I help you today? And the first line of defense individual can start to type in. It says, hey, it looks like you're trying to report a risk event. So I'm going to select that option. And in this case, the agent is going to walk them through reporting that event. So summarize the events in a few words. And we can continue through this process. It was an actual event. And in this case, we're going to request, when did it happen? It happened a couple of days ago. We're going to click OK. And we continue through having this conversation, right? Does this require immediate attention? The answer is yes. And we get through this whole process and we see that that risk event has been logged. And then the first line of defense individual has known that that has been reported, but maybe later they want to find out what happened, right? And they want to follow up on the issue. So in closing that agent, we can come up here to My Open Requests, and what they'll see by viewing the My Issues, My Tasks, My Open Requests is there's a new event that has been created. And if we view all of these here, we can see that there is a new risk event right here, the data breach on the financial application. They can select that particular record, they can view it, and they can see all of the details, as well as in the activity, post additional messages, and that automatically shows up in the activity log as a part of this particular risk event. We can go back home, and that allows then the user to continue on with the rest of their work. I want to talk to you for a few minutes about policy acknowledgements and how we use policy acknowledgement campaigns to drive work out to employees of an organization and have them review and accept or even submit policy exceptions for policies within an organization. So as we start here with Grace, you can see that she sees the policy acknowledgement dashboard, and we have a series of campaigns going on where she can see the status of what is outstanding or what's pending at this point. When we look at the individual campaigns, we can look at something like the acceptable use policy campaign. And in here, we can see the details of what that policy is, the fact that it was going to all employees. The acknowledgement results shows the current status of what's been done, how many have accepted it, and in the activities, we can see what's been going on as a part of this particular campaign. Over in the first line of defense, what we see is if we go into the policy library, we can see that there's a place for first line of defense to use the policy acknowledgements. By selecting this, we can see the outstanding policy acknowledgements. We can see that one has already been accepted at a previous time, and there's that acceptable use policy waiting for Grace to review and approve. So in this case, I'm going to view that particular policy. We can see the details of that, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and here's where we see that we can accept or request an exception. So in this case, Grace is going to accept the fact that she's read through this. She can see the details of it. She accepts it. Yes, I want to accept this particular acknowledgement, and now we have two of these that have been accepted. So then back over here, what we can see that those have automatically been updated, and there's now two people, and the rates have changed. And when we go back to our policy acknowledgement overview, we see that those numbers have updated, including the number of those that have been accepted. I want to to talk to you for a few minutes about the new Orlando capability around policy, the attestation consolidation. So the first thing you'll notice on the My Attestation overview is that we don't have any current attestations that are waiting for Grace to complete. But when we look at, she looks at all of my controls, in this case, they're all sitting here in a draft state, and we want to move those forward. So by moving these forward, we're going to attest to all of these controls. And what that means is that all 15 of these controls just created an attestation for Grace to complete. And that really is a lot of work. So in this case, I now have 15 controls that are awaiting her to do something. And we see here all of these attestations that are awaiting for her to take. So what we're going to do is we're going to group these together. So by going into the My Attestations, she can select all of these from the list and group these together. So by doing so, we have a couple of options. We can provide the same response for every assessment, and it will apply that same answer across all of them. Or we can go through and provide a different response for each one of those. So in this case, because she knows it's basically the same evidence or the same response, so all of them have been implemented, she wants to provide the same response. Then the next thing is I want to do it maybe by entity. So now we can see that it's grouped all 5 of those for each one of those, and maybe she has different evidence. Maybe it's a statement of work, or maybe it's some sort of document that's been signed by a particular vendor, so she wants to do it by entity, and the 15 is going to consolidate down to 3. So let's go ahead and group those together. And now what happens is these assessments have been gone. And if we go back to the overview, we'll see down here in the pending attestations that the list went from 15 down to 3. Okay, so what we'll do here is we're actually going to go to my grouped attestations, and we have the 3 of them that are here waiting for her response. We're going to take one of those assessments. We can see here at the top that there's a link that's going to give her visibility into all of the questions that are part of it and all of the instances that that will apply to. So let's go ahead and take that assessment. And when we answer that, we're going to say yes. We're going to provide some additional evidence. We're going to choose our evidence file. And then we're going to say file. We're going to go ahead and submit that. By doing that, what happens is that assessment disappears. And we can now move in and go ahead and take the next assessment. And we're going to go ahead and say yes. And we attach our evidence by choosing our file. And we go ahead and submit that. So what this has allowed us to do is, if we go back to the overview, is consolidate all of those down. And now we can group these by entity, and we can stack these by state. And we've completed a large number of those for the first 2 in a very easy manner by consolidating them down into grouped attestations.
Thank you for joining us, and I hope you're able to take advantage of the new features in Orlando. Please visit www.servicenow.risk for more information.